Well, good morning and welcome to You Talk Funny, which is Winnipeg Comedy Festival's 25th anniversary experiment in reminiscence and reflection on all that has been. And to do that, we're welcoming some of the greatest comedy minds in the country. And this morning, we have the pleasure of having Erica Sigurdson, who is no stranger to the Winnipeg Comedy
No,
Festival.
no.
Welcome here. Thanks for
Thank
doing
you.
this.
Greatest minds. That's impressive. What a way to wake up.
So, but now, the bar is set.
That's true.
So this is, do you know, like right off the top of your head, how many festivals here this is for you?
I don't know if I had to throw a number out, I'd say maybe 13, maybe. Plus,
Like it feels like when the schedule comes out, your name is almost always there. Is there something about this festival that sort of draws you back? I mean, obviously, as a working uh, Canadian comedian, like during festival season, you sort
yeah.
of have to be on the road. But is there any particular allure about this one that sort of keeps you coming back?
I mean, Winnipeg has always been, as far as festivals go, it is run so well. Like just the logistics of it, when you show up at the festival, the volunteer table at the hotel, like everything goes like clockwork, the transport. Not every festival is like that. And it was the first festival I ever did. So
Oh, really?
yeah, it was like really early in my comedy career. And the first year that I came here was actually not officially with the festival, but Brent Butt was doing a live talk show. And
I remember that.
yeah, so he brought me as his stand-up guest. So I kind of came in on his coattails, and then I met a bunch of people from the festival, and I was super nerdy when I was like, I wrote everybody thank you cards, and like was like probably a little keen. And then they invited me back to be officially part of the festival the next year. So
So one of the things about this festival is that if you get booked and you're doing one of the galas, I guess they don't call them galas anymore, but you're doing one of the galas,
yeah,
they're theme driven. So you're not just arriving and doing a part of your act.
yeah.
It's like you have to tailor it to a specific theme. Is that
Mhm.
is that burdensome, or is that an interesting challenge? To sort of how does that sort of inform the experience?
It is an interesting challenge. The first one that I ever did was on sports. And so I had written all the jokes, I had practiced all the jokes, but I had practiced them all separately. And on the day of the performance, I realized, and everyone, all the producers, the directors realized I had never said the entire thing front to back. And I kept blanking, and they were like, oh my gosh. And I was thinking, I'm like, I know the jokes, but I don't know, like, I don't know the flow. And so they put the whole thing in the teleprompter. I'd never read off a teleprompter. So
That would
during,
be freaky.
oh my gosh, for everyone, they're like, oh, why did we bring her? And I'm like trying to read. I'm like, and then my husband, oh no. But that instinct of being a comedian came over. And when I walked out on stage and Dennis Hall was the MC, he introduced me. I walked out on stage as soon as I told the first joke. It just all came back, and I didn't need the teleprompter, thank goodness,
Thank
because I was
goodness.
not good at reading. It's very difficult the first time you do it. So I learned after that, don't practice just the jokes, do the whole set, because you'll get yourself in trouble.
So that's interesting because like the shows that are being taped for television, like those, your material is like super vetted, like to make
Yes.
sure that it's appropriate for the
Yeah.
TV production side of it. So they had actually seen all the material, but they didn't realize that it had not all been sort of,
Well,
performed as a block the way that it was going to
yeah,
be.
because I didn't submit a video. I submitted a script. So they
Okay.
had read the script,
Right.
which I had written, but I had not done them in, because when I was in Vancouver, it's funny to just, when you are practicing and you know who's going to Winnipeg in like February, March, early April, because they're all practicing their sets.
Right.
So you get a comedian going on stage who is practicing one thing, like politics or sports.
Yeah.
And the audience is kind of like, man, they are really on this. Because usually comedy is very much,
Yeah.
flowing into different subject matters, and we're just focused in on this one topic. But yeah, I didn't practice it like I should have. So I learned my lesson.
Has there been a particular theme assignment that you thought was either A, like, the most interesting or B, like, the most challenging and kind of irksome?
That one I have PTSD from. Like, I just remember sitting in the makeup chair, and I mean, I was so young. I was, probably the third time I came to this festival. The first themed gala I had just done sound check and bombed sound check, and I was just they're putting makeup on my face, and I'm like, like they're trying to make up over the crying. And I was so stressed, and I was just like, I'm never gonna get asked back. They're never gonna have me back. Why'd I do this? And you're beating yourself up. So that one I have PTSD from. So all the rest of them I practice so much. There's no I'm like, oh, those ones are fine because I over practiced after that.
They've all been easy since.
Exactly. Although once I was doing my set and in my head as I'm saying my jokes, I'm like, something is missing. And I realized I had missed an entire chunk. And
Oh,
then I just moved it to the end. So whoever's backstage watching the script is probably like, oh gosh, she missed that. But then I just plopped it at the end.
which is
Because
not easy to do because, like, there's a set of I connections that drives the narrative as you're doing
yeah,
it, so,
yeah,
yeah.
luckily it works, and it is very interesting when you're performing. You're telling jokes, and the whole time you can see you're like, "Why is that guy not? Why is his arms crossed? Why is she doing that?" And then you're also loading the next joke. So you have so many things going on in your brain. So when you know you missed a joke and you're like, "What joke did I miss?" But you're also talking at the same time. So it's like your brain is divided into about 5 different little categories, and then it popped into my brain and I was able to just weave it through. And they do a little bit of editing too. So,
Yeah.
if you make kind of a clumsy transition, they can kind of snip it and make it make sense.
So, one of the things like, both during my time covering the festival for the Winnipeg Free Press and sort of now the conversations yesterday, one of the things that comedians have often said to me about this festival is that unlike, let's call it the big festival, uh, the the agenda here is very straightforward. It's about the comedy. Nobody's chasing a deal.
Right.
Nobody, like, nobody's sort of judging you not for what you're doing, but for what you might be able to get them later, right?
Yeah.
Is it so is that create sort of attitudinally a different kind of experience for the people who come here?
Yeah, 100%. When you are at, this festival, the friendships and it's like adult summer camp, right? You're seeing friends because once you start headlining, you're not working with all your best friends in comedy as much. So when you come to a festival, you're all working together, you're on the same show, you're in the same hotel, you're having fun, there's after parties. Whereas if you're at, like, let's say an industry festival, you are talking to people who are looking over you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like they're taught, and you
like
can see they're kind
like
of like, "Who else is here?" And it's
you're interesting, but
exactly,
yeah,
"What can you do for me?" And,
yeah,
it can be really, the peaks and valleys during one of those industry festivals is emotionally, it's a roller coaster because 'cause you'll have a good set and a couple people say something to you, but then they'll see somebody else and you're tossed aside. So, this is much more I mean, there's still the pressure of a TV taping, which you wanna do well,
right.
but there's not that industry pressure of like, "Oh, I didn't." And I think most festivals now are different anyways because TikTok and it's all a different thing. They don't even need to go to a festival to discover you because they're looking on the internet, so
And I was gonna get into that later, but isn't that kind of to the detriment of the art form that, like, it's not as necessary to put in the hours and the miles and, like, build build an act.
yeah.
It's like if you throw yourself into a wading pool full of ice water, you could get a gig somewhere, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I do wonder, and I really hesitate to say it's like a detriment because I don't wanna be somebody, like in my day, because
No, that's me.
things have
That's
all
my job.
oh, I say it in my head, I'm just trying not to say it out loud. Um, but yeah, how do people build a 45-minute, because you can get famous off a 5-minute clip that
Right.
goes viral or a 3-minute clip. And then if people buy tickets to your theater show, how are you building a 45 to an hour set? I have no idea. So maybe you're just doing multiple, maybe they're going to be like me in my first gala where I didn't actually, they're going to get up there and have a teleprompter. I don't know. I guess we'll see in like 5 years how things are going.
So speaking of sort of preparing material for a specific subject, it was suggested to me the other day that you have done more debaters than anybody else. Like, is that something? Like, do you know that to be true, or
I don't know. I know I've done a lot. I know I'm probably in the top 5. I don't know if it's more than anybody else.
and is that by design? Is there something about that presentation of comedy that has appealed to you, or
Oh, I mean, I love the debate. I love the debaters, and I was, one of the early people in Vancouver that did, one of the first 1 or 2 tapings. Um, I like the art form, and if they ask, I'll do it. So, I think I think I'm also good at taking kind of like I describe it as kinda like I'm like the mean older sister in a lot of debates, like, they're like, "This is fun," and I'm like, "No, it isn't." So, and I like playing that role.
well, it's almost like it's like a verbal professional wrestling match in that it works best if there's like a heel and a good
Yes.
person, right?
Yeah, exactly. So, and there's certain people that really vibe with. Like Derek and I are debating tonight, and we've debated a ton, and we're good friends. And so that's always kind of a really fun little because we can take jabs at each other
Mhm.
that we know about each other's personal lives.
And people who listen to that uh, probably appreciate the nature of the debate, but might not realize that, like a professional wrestling match, it's like it's supposed to be a confrontation,
Yeah.
but it only works if there's like almost balletic collaboration while it's happening, right?
Yes. Yeah. Like certain people on their first debate, they're really focused on trying to win the debate. And we can't lose sight of the fact that we are making a radio show that should be entertaining. So there's certain things you could do in a debate to definitely win the debate technically, but are you making an entertaining show?
Right.
So you need to make sure you're also doing that. So sometimes when I'm chatting beforehand, I'll say like, "Oh, it'd be funny if you said this," and it's putting me in a bad position, but it's a very funny,
Right.
I'm like, "Go ahead and say that. Go ahead and put
Okay.
me down." And then sometimes people say things on the spot that put me down, and I wasn't
Yeah.
ready for it, and I'm still like, "Ooh, good one." But
But it's like it's sort of taking the punch for the betterment of the show, right?
exactly,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, because you want to make it fun, and it doesn't. You win if you get booked for another debate. Like, the the bookers aren't like, "Oh, she," like, because you have to have a loser for every debate.
Right. Well, no,
Well, sometimes they tie.
sometimes it's a
Sometimes
tie.
they
Yeah.
tie, but I know in my heart who really won, and often it's not me.
Well, it also it might depend on something like, whose hometown is it, right?
Exactly,
Yeah.
yeah.
And like really, who wins or loses on the debater is maybe the least important thing that will ever happen in show business.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
It does not matter. You don't get any extra money, there's no trophy,
Yeah.
that's just in your own mind.
So you mentioned earlier that that you started at this like very young.
Yeah.
You sort of got into stand up probably barely out of your teens, right? Or maybe
I was, like, 24 the first time I stepped on stage, or no, I was 25. And then so my first festival was probably 26 or 27. There was just an Instagram reel that went up from that year I did the sports gala, and I'm like, "Oh, I'm like a little baby."
so. I'm always curious because there necessarily is something. What was the motivation? Like it's, in the old Seinfeld bit about a funeral, like, the person in the cactus or the person in the
Yeah,
casket is like the second greatest fear. It's the public speaking's
it's public
first, right?
speaking, yeah.
So what was it that drove you to do this for the first time?
Well, since I was a kid, I wanted to do it.
Really?
Yeah, when I was about, we always used to watch Carson, like even though it was a little bit late for me to be up. And the first time I saw a stand-up comedian, Like, when you're a kid, like, you understand when there's a musician, you understand when there's like a singer, somebody playing an instrument, but somebody just standing in front of a microphone, and I was like, "What's that guy doing?" And he was telling jokes, and my dad was laughing, and they said, "Oh, he's a stand-up comedian, he tells jokes." And I thought, "That's what I'm gonna do."
Do you remember who it was?
I don't remember who it was, um, but, like, I remember my dad thought, like, Jeff Foxworthy was the funniest, guy, and one of my fun, like, full circle moments as a comedian was, we used to watch Night Court, and do you remember Yakov Smirnoff?
I do.
Okay, so Yakov Smirnoff, who was
I
in
went to
Russia.
his theater in Branson,
Did you?
Missouri.
Okay.
Yeah.
So when I was, I don't know, 10 or 11 years into comedy, he was in Vancouver for a while, and he hired a few comedians as writers. And I was one of those comedians. And I remember, like, he had a big, like, hotel suite, and not in a weird, awkward way. There was multiple people there, but I remember just thinking, like, little Erica would be losing her mind knowing that she's here writing for Yakov Smirnoff. So it was a fun little turnaround moment. But I always loved, even as a kid, like, I did speeches in school. I took law, and we had competitions to go to the law courts and make legal arguments. So public speaking and, like, even debating, I did from a young age. So I wasn't necessarily afraid to talk in public.
Right.
But the first day that I actually was going to a comedy club to do a set, I was like, I would just randomly double over and go, "What am I doing?"
So were you sort of egged on by friends, or was this just something you decided on your own? And like, th- saying you want to do it is one thing,
Yeah,
but actively traveling to a place where you're going to have to step up on to a stage in front of a
yeah,
spotlight and do it, that's a whole other thing.
yeah. I didn't really tell people that I wanted to be a comedian. I was always very sarcastic, and, like, people think comedians are like the people that are like waka 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 in school, and we're usually the quiet ones that are observing everything, and then we will make little jabs
Right.
and comments here and there. But I had um, got a job at a bank, which is the least funny place you could work. And I had started writing these newsletters like every week. And it was like The Onion. It was like a mock newsletter where I would make fun of bank program like policies, and I would do profiles on different people. And there's women in the lunchroom one day, and they were reading one of them, and one of them was like cry laughing, and she was like, "Oh my God, you're so funny. You're gonna be a person we said we knew you when." And then it's the first time I said, "Well, I've always wanted to do stand-up comedy." And they were like, "You have to." And then the next day, my bank manager looked up in the local college, there was a comedy course, and she's like, "You need to sign up for this course." So I signed up for the course, and this was in the day that taking a comedy course was very frowned upon. Like, nowadays, everybody's teaching a master class. When
Right.
I started, it was like, like, you can't learn to be funny, which is true. Like, you can't go to a course and suddenly you're gonna be a stand-up comedian, but if you have it,
Right.
it will help you get to the stage. So I took it. They all came to my show. I had 50 friends and family at my first show,
Oh, wow.
which was a lot of pressure. Like, I was like, "Why did I invite everyone I know?" So I did that show, and some of those women they still come to my shows. Like, and it's really, they support me so much. They were there for my very first show, and they keep coming, and they're kind of the ones that push me on stage.
So, did you have the not uncommon experience that first time you go up, it's great and it's the best thing that ever happened, so it's like, "I gotta do this again," and the second time you go up, you bomb horribly, and then you have to really figure out what it's gonna be?
No, because it took me a little bit to get my second set because of the first set was in a course.
Okay.
Like, it was at a comedy club, and I did, like, the moment, the lights, the mic, everything, I was like, "This is what I'm doing with my life."
Yeah.
The first laugh, I was like, "This is it." And then, like, to phone around to find out where the amateur nights were to get a spot on the amateur night took, like, I don't know, probably a month. So that was probably good because it was a month later, and I did well. I didn't bomb. I did well enough that they and girls were really, there wasn't a lot of girls doing comedy when I started.
Right.
So if you came and you did well, like, as much as people are like, "Oh, it's really hard to be a woman in this business," I found because I did well, there's 10 women and 150 men.
Right.
So you kind of get catapulted kind of beyond some of your peers.
But you also, at that time, you would have had to navigate the unfortunate landscape of, like, way too many men saying, "Oh, women can't be funny," right?
Yeah.
Which is, like, ridiculous nonsense, but it was a prevalent opinion
Oh,
for a long time.
100%. One of the least favorite things people like, and it was, and sometimes women would say it to me too, and they go, and I'm like, let me guess, you usually don't find women funny. And they would say that to me all the time. And, like what I would want to say is like, oh, you really grew today. But that's, like, I'm like, well, I don't want to be bitchy. So you would
Oh,
just kind of say, I'm like, oh, thank you so much. But
congratulations for stifling the urge.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So it's, bite my tongue.
So, okay, so you sort of you've made that step to, sort of like realize a lifelong dream.
Yeah.
But then there's a process of, okay, I love doing this, and this is what I'm gonna do. And there's a very long winding road between that and I can make a living at this.
Yeah.
So I'm assuming you didn't, quit your day job the next day.
I did not
So,
quit my
like,
day job.
how long and how hard was the journey to the point where you said to yourself, "All right, now this is my job."
So when I started stand up, so I was working at the bank, and then I ended up getting a job um, as a Starbucks manager. And so I was doing comedy until, getting home at 2 in the morning and waking up at like 4:30 to go open a Starbucks. And then I ended up quitting that job because I realized, like, I can't be in charge of a store and also need to go on the road. And so I left that job, went back to the bank, and then it was just a period of slowly doing less and less day job
Yeah.
and more comedy. And then I quit, like, I finally quit my job. I gave my notice, and I was like, okay, I can do background work because Vancouver's got a huge film scene.
Right.
And being an extra member, you actually get paid decent. So I would supplement with background work. I did catering like 10 times. I hated it.
You ever do any voice work?
I didn't do voice work.
Because that's also big out there.
Yes, voice work is quite big as well. I did a lot of auditioning. I only ever landed 3 things. But the last day of work, I got called that morning and asked if I could do an interview for a writing job. And I got a writing job an hour after I quit my job. And that writing job paid enough. It paid more money than I would have made in 3 months at my day job.
Oh, nice.
And I'm not saying it was all that, but it was a really nice, like, leap in the universe will catch you kind of moment.
Yeah, well, it lessens the pressure, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and that would allow you to be more sort of focused and free on the creative part of
Yeah.
all of that.
Yeah.
So, okay, so jumping forward, now you've been in this now for 20 some
25, 26 years.
yeah.
Yeah.
Um, as a person navigating a career in comedy, like you're sort of you're doing the showbiz performing part, but the background of that is as a human being, you're going through many life stages, and as a comic who talks about life,
Yeah.
like there has to be a constant process of reinvention, and the things that worked for you being funny 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 15 years ago are no longer relevant to what you're doing. So talk a little bit about the journey of finding the funny in, like, the whole different person that you are, you know?
I think, okay, who's that? Some comedians trying to distract me in the background. Derek's again. Um, I think one thing, like doing festivals that are themed, doing debaters, and also writing for living, like when you are forced to sit down and write comedy, that maybe didn't just pop, because people are like, where do you get your jokes from?
Right.
So you have to open yourself up to new experiences so that you have something. So if I go through like a slump, like sometimes you literally are like, I don't have any other things to write about. Like I have not. And then so I'll sign up for a course. I'll go, you drive to a different neighborhood and you sit in a different coffee shop. Go to one that is like full of rich people or full of poor people, or like do something different, expose yourself to something different so that you're writing new material. And, you know, because it can get really easy to just tell the same 30 minutes of joke
Yeah.
for 15, 20 years. And, while the audience might know, as you're telling it, you kind of feel like, oh my God, I can't believe I'm still telling this joke. So yeah, you have to evolve and find new avenues that you might be able to find new material. And I also like started a writing group in Vancouver of a group of women, and we get together like once every 2 weeks and just throw out ideas, and it's just like getting those creative juices flowing is so helpful.
Have there been, quote unquote, mentors in your comedy journey?
Yeah, there's been a lot of mentors. I mean, Brent Budd has like he brought me here to
Right.
the first festival. He also hired me as a writer on Corner Gas Animated. He forcefully got me to, like he point blank had to say, like, I need a spec script from you. I'm trying to give you a job. Like, stop,
That sounds very Brent Budd.
yeah. I mean, I'm such a person, I guess, I don't know if you analyze my personality. If you give me a deadline, I will do it. If there's no deadline, it will just live up here in La La Land.
Yeah.
Like, so if somebody says, tell me I can't do something, and then I will,
Yeah. You're
I'll
not
do it.
alone in
Oh,
meeting a deadline.
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, I used to beat myself up because most times when I have to hand in something, I will write it the night before. And I used to really beat myself up about it. But what I also realized is I've been writing it in my brain ever since it got assigned to me.
Right.
Just putting it on paper, I find very difficult, and I hate it. So I've been writing for 2 months, and then I will sit down and go over
Yeah.
and
The writing is the process. The writing's not the writing.
exactly.
Yeah.
And I used to think, well, why don't you change? But it's like, but why? Like, if this is my process, respect that it's my process.
Right.
Like, would it be better? Maybe. Would it be worse? Maybe. So far it's working for me.
So as someone who could be fairly described as mid-career, what it do you have a vision of where this leads you, or are you open to where it's gonna go? I mean, there's always, because you have, a life and bills to pay, there's an urgency to making it a sort of a financially productive endeavor, but sort of where do you see yourself going creatively, comedically as you go forward?
Well, one thing that has been, I would love to write a humor book. Um, and if someone will just give me a deadline, I can have it done by next year. Um, I also like I do a lot of corporate events. Like when I decided, probably about 10 years ago, and I kind of made the decision, this lifestyle, whatever, I wasn't going to have kids. And I thought, if I am not going to have kids for this job, I want to make good money at this job.
Right.
And so, diversifying where your income comes from is very smart. So I write, can MC events, I do, corporates, festivals, clubs, whatever you're doing, to make as much money as you can. So I'd love to write a book. Working on my keynote speech. I'm type 1 diabetic, so I have been hired to speak at different events about how humor can help you deal with a chronic illness.
Right.
So that's, a passion project, and I'm open kind of to anything, but I'm not like hardline, like this is the day I will stop doing stand-up comedy,
Well, yeah.
which if you asked me 25 years ago, you know, I'm not gonna do it when I'm 40, and now I'm past 40 and I'm still doing it, so
But, like, what else would you do?
I don't know, that's the frightening
And
question.
what else will you do that would be as as
Profitable?
no, as fulfilling and
Yeah.
as much fun. Like, there, if you can make a living as a stand-up comic, there's a huge element of who gets to do this, right?
Yes, yeah, yeah, and I mean, COVID was definitely a moment of realizing you have put all your eggs in this one basket, and when COVID hit, like, we certainly weren't essential workers, but then we quickly did become essential workers because people were stuck in their homes, and I started doing Zoom shows, and I was contacted by somebody who had hired me for a corporate event, and she said, "I have to do a Zoom Christmas party, and I thought you could do comedy." And I said, "Absolutely not. It will not work. You can't do Zoom in front of a laptop." And she's like, "Please." She's like, "I know you could do it." And I was like, I don't want to." And she's like, "Just, I will hire you. I will pay you. If it doesn't go well, that's fine. But I know that you can do it. And I have to put something together and I can't think of anything else." So I did it and I actually enjoyed it.
Really?
Like I was surprised because in my head, I pictured me on my laptop telling jokes to no one, and that there was a room full of people going, "What a fool." But what I realized was there's all these little boxes of people alone during this scary time. And then suddenly they were connected by something again. And that was me alone in my spare room telling jokes. And then I started to produce shows every 2 weeks. I had people all over the world that were buying tickets, and I could get I got American comics. I just messaged them and I was like, "I'm doing these Zoom shows." And, like we had one for Steve Patterson's 50th birthday, and, we had 500 people watching from all over Canada and
Wow.
all over the world. And that became very fulfilling because, number one, I was able to make money, and I was also able to pay some comics some money. It wasn't huge, but it was groceries.
Sure.
Um, and you kind of realize how you do have this unique talent, and you, like Seinfeld says, like, nobody wants to do it, so you can roll that into making money
That's awesome.
in some other ways.
Well, thank you for doing this.
Thank
This has
you.
been great fun. I'm throwing one last question at
Okay.
everybody, and I think you may have already answered it earlier, but I've been asking everybody, sort of in relation to the Winnipeg Comedy Festival and sort of looking at its 25 years. When you think of the Winnipeg Comedy Festival and your experiences with it, is there a moment, like something you did, something you saw, somebody you saw that immediately jumps to your mind, like, as sort of the first thing that pops in your mind to highlight?
Uh, It's probably the friendships that I have made, not just with the other comics, but with the people that run this festival. Like, they are friends. They
Yeah.
come to Vancouver, we get together. And that doesn't happen with a lot of festivals. Like, I've been seeing these people year after year after year, and they take such good care of everybody. And I genuinely love them and appreciate them.
That's awesome.
So when I think of coming to Winnipeg, it's not just to see my comic friends, it's also to see all of the behind the scenes people that make this festival so great.
So cool. Again, thanks for doing this.
Thank you so much for having me.
We're on YouTube.